Welcome to another episode of Inside City Hall, the official podcast of the City of Oregon City. I'm the Communications Manager, Jared Lyman, and I'm your host for the podcast. And I'm really excited for today's episode because I get to speak with somebody who, despite probably having the coolest job in the city, I actually don't get to interact with her that much. So I'm really excited to be joined by Judge Amy Lindgren. Judge, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join me. I appreciate it.
Very welcome, Jared. I think you're lucky that you do not have to interact with me very often.
It depends on the context of how I'd be interacting, I guess.
Yes. You're not getting speeding tickets, right? So
they haven't found me. No, I mean, not at all. I'm very
not
safe
at all.
driver.
Never,
very
ever. You
safe
never
driver.
speed.
So first, before we go into like the main topic of today, I want to just touch a little bit on what is it that, because there's different levels of court, and your average person, hopefully, doesn't have a lot of experience with court and doesn't know. So you are the wow, that's fun to say, municipal court judge. So what does that mean, and how does that play into the whole level of things?
So within the court system in the United States, there's the Supreme Court, of course, that we all hear about. And so there's the federal judicial system. That's where Donald Trump was recently, or has multiple cases pending. And then there's each state has its own judicial system that falls under the federal court. And so the case with Donald Trump in New York, that was a state court case. So in Oregon, we have circuit courts. Each county has its own circuit court. And then each city can have its own court as well, which is usually established by the city charter of each city. And so different cities have different municipal courts, meaning that they have jurisdiction over different types of cases. Oregon City has jurisdiction, according to the city charter, over crimes that are misdemeanor crimes, which are under the maximum penalty is under a year in jail, and traffic violations and code violations. So if it's a higher level offense, for example, a robbery, a burglary, that would be a felony case, felony crime, and that would get prosecuted in circuit court because all the felonies have to go before a grand jury. Misdemeanor cases, but they have to occur within the jurisdictional city limits of Oregon City. And if it's a misdemeanor case, that is not a driving under the influence of intoxicants or a domestic violence case. We don't do those two. It gets prosecuted in Oregon City Municipal Court. And then the court also does the traffic violations. If there's a code case involving, a lot of times if there's noxious weeds, blackberry bushes, that kind of thing, we handle those.
Okay, so I don't want to spend all day on this, but I probably could. We could probably do a whole podcast on this stuff because I really do find it interesting. But so the question pops into my mind, does it also have to have been a case initiated by Oregon City Police Department, or let's say if like a Clackamas County Sheriff's deputy stopped somebody in Oregon City, gave them a traffic citation, would that also fall under municipal court because it's in our city limits, or does it go to county court because it's a county law enforcement officer?
That is an excellent question, and different cities, again, do it differently. There are certain days in the year where the law enforcement agencies within the county will do traffic details. And so Oregon City Police Department will host sheriff's deputies, Canby police officers, Milwaukee police officers, and these officers come to, even though they're outside, they work in a different city, they all come and do traffic enforcement in Oregon City. And they issue citations to the Oregon City Municipal Court. And then a different day of the year, Oregon City police officers might go to Happy Valley and assist them in traffic enforcement. So for the most part, a police officer can issue a citation in any city or county in Oregon. Whereas in St. Helens, I also work there, Columbia County Sheriff's deputies will only issue, even though it might happen in the jurisdictional city limits of St. Helens, they won't cite people to St. Helens Municipal Court, they will cite them to Circuit Court. So technically, the municipal court has what we call concurrent jurisdiction, with circuit court. So a case could go to either Oregon City Municipal Court or circuit court. And with certain types of offenses, the prosecutor might elect to send it to circuit court. For example, if the prosecutor knows that a defendant has a lot of different cases from maybe different cities, just for judicial efficiency, it makes sense for one court to handle it. So it would all go to circuit court rather than split up the case and make the defendant go to 2 different locations. So
Judicial efficiency. Let's say that 5 times fast. Yeah. So with that said, obviously, and then this is going to kind of define the direction that we're going in the conversation, but a lot of the cases that the city deals with do oftentimes involve houseless individuals. So the city, in its approach in attempting to more proactively handle the situation, we've applied for a grant that I think we've officially gotten the grant that we're going to.
It's been approved. We haven't done the paperwork.
Okay.
Yes, it has been approved and it's in the works.
So talk a little bit then. What is that grant? How much is that for? And then how is that going to be used?
Well, can I take a step back?
You can drive whoever you want. I am not
Okay.
going to tell the person with the gavel how to do anything.
All right. Because I think it's important for people to understand the traditional court system first and the issues that we have right now. In a traditional criminal case for, let's say, theft, Fred Meyer, a person is alleged to have committed the theft, and let's say they're leaving the store and have a shopping cart full of groceries that allegedly have not been paid for. A police officer would investigate it and perhaps take the person to Clackamas County Jail and book them on the charge. And then they get released and with a date to appear for their arraignment about a month later. And then the prosecutor would file the case within that month. The person's supposed to come back. But most of the time, the people don't come back. And then when they don't come back, the court issues a warrant. And then they eventually get picked up on the warrant. And then the officer takes them back to jail. They get booked in the jail. They get released again with a new date about a month out.
And the cycle continues.
And the cycle continues. And the cycle continues. And it continues. So it is this revolving door. And it is what we are dealing with is a problem where people who are struggling, who don't have homes and aren't living a stable, what we would consider stable life, where they can keep their paperwork and keep track of things, they aren't able to remember or just simply don't remember or can't get themselves to court a month later.
Yeah.
Because they don't know where they're going to get their next meal, let alone to remember the court date. And so the other problem is that the jail simply does not have capacity.
And this is a problem that jurisdictions across the country are seeing. This
yes,
is not
absolutely.
special to us by any
No,
means.
it's not special to us. Within the state of Oregon, there are certain counties that do have more jail space. But Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and Washington County particularly, because we are the metro areas, simply don't have enough jail space. So even though a person might have failed to appear 10 times, and we know the only way to get them to court is to hold them, we just simply don't have the jail space because we'd rather hold more serious offenders than somebody who stole a case of beer from Fred Meyer. So there's this revolving door problem. And then if we do get the case resolved where the people actually come, most courts don't have the services to provide people to help them succeed on probation and be more stabilize, maybe provide them drug and alcohol treatment or housing services, those types of things that would help them get off the street and get jobs. So in the traditional court system is simply just not working efficiently.
It seems to me that, if we're honest, the rehabilitation part of a lot of the justice system just due to budgetary constraints, personnel constraints, and everything, the rehabilitation kind of takes a back seat. So what you're saying is this kind of focuses more on that to limit the recidivism and then try to actually get people beyond that vicious cycle.
Yes.
Would that be a good way of saying that?
Yeah, to break the cycle. Yes. You used a phrase that now is escaping me. So I'll move on. But what this community court aims to do is provide a similar program that most of the circuit courts provide. Because the circuit courts are funded by the state, whereas the cities are funded by each city, the circuit court and the DA's offices have more resources to provide community courts and specialty courts. So they have drug courts, they have mental health courts, and this is circuit court here. They have a driving under the influence of intoxicants court, community court, drug court, mental health court. Those are, I think, the four primary ones.
I've heard family court. Is that something
and
there
that's
too?
I think more with the juvenile system.
Oh, okay.
Dependency if the kids are being removed, and then it helps the parents rehabilitate in order to get the kids back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is a similar program, but the cities just simply don't have the money to fund these courts because it takes resources.
Yeah.
It takes a court clerk. It takes a defense attorney. It takes peer support specialists, and so we just can't do it. And what's unfortunate about it is somebody who commits theft in Fred Meyer up here in Oregon City at this point would not be given the option of a community court, whereas if they commit a theft in an unincorporated part of Clackamas County, and they would be otherwise eligible, they might get offered community court because the DA's office does have the program. And so, it seemed unfair to me, and I think most people would agree, that just because the Fred Meyer that you happen to be allegedly stealing from is in a different location, you are provided different services, or opportunities to succeed. And so this is the community court that the city proposed is similar to the Clackamas County Community Court, where it would be either pre-conviction, so a person is charged with a crime, and then they plead guilty to it, waive their right to have a trial, and then accomplish certain goals that the parties, basically the prosecutor, the judge, the defendant, agree to. Most of those would be like applying for a housing application, working with Love One or Father's Heart, and just breaking down the barriers, maybe getting a substance abuse evaluation, mental health evaluation, things that are achievable to them and that build their trust in the justice system and also build the community's trust and just at least start trying to help people rather than just have this revolving door of people going in and out of jail over and over and over again.
So obviously this is a program that is based off of the successes that we've seen in other jurisdictions. While not necessarily looking for specifics, are you able to speak to some maybe like anecdotal successes that you've seen that kind of help guide the process of what the city is looking at doing in this court, how it works or how it's kind of helped some people?
I visited Clackamas County Clackamas County Circuit Court's Community Court recently, and there was a woman there who had been working with, it was a nonprofit, it may have been Love One, I can't remember now because it was a couple months ago, to get housing. And she had this pending theft case, and she came in and she filled out the information, and basically she was working with Love One to get the housing. And she'd come in and she'd gotten the housing, she'd gotten a job, and she was totally stable. And they had a celebration. She was so proud of herself. They give treats and little tokens and a certificate, and then the case gets dismissed. And according to the statistics from the county, I think there was 80-some% of cases of defendants don't return to court. So
That's incredible.
So it's pretty astonishing statistics when you give people the tools and the supervision. So that's a key component in this, is the supervision and support. So when I say supervision, I don't mean like a probation officer. I mean a peer support specialist. So a lot of people...
We're like a guide then.
It's a guide.
An authority figure looking
Yes.
at, yeah.
Yeah. And we say peer support because it's somebody that they can connect with who's on the street, help, they know where they live.
Somebody who's lived the life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or is at least connected with the services.
Yeah.
So they would be, so what we've done is we've partnered with Love One, and we will have, the county is funding 2 peer support specialists who would be employed by Love One, but assigned to the Oregon City Specialty Court Program. And so those 2 peer support specialists would be working with our defendants to help them accomplish the things that we've set out in each agreement. And then, remind them to come to court, give them a ride to court. Basically, just walk them through the whole 6-month to year-long process.
So, and this is probably one of those details that probably only interests me, but I'm curious in the logistics of it all. So when we call it community court, is it something that is going to be set at different times, different days or whatever, or can it just be like on a case-by-case basis where this case I'm trying is part of just standard municipal court, while the next one is going to be a community court format, or is there an actual set guideline of or guardrails of when it is and so forth?
That's a great question. It will be a different time. So right now we hold court on Tuesdays, and criminal cases are at 1:30. These would be on Mondays. And one reason why it's a Monday afternoon is that the jail can only hold people for 48 hours.
The weekends.
And so if we have it on Monday, we can get people as they're getting out of jail. The other goal is to have the cases filed really quickly. Because if you have a case, it comes in, it might take a week to get to the prosecutor. Prosecutor files it within the arraignment date, but that's 30 days away. Then, we lose people. So if we can file the case immediately after it happens and get them the intervention and assign to a peer support specialist within a few days, then they're more likely to, I think, be successful just because it's so quick. So the goal is to have it 2 Mondays a month. And that it's not just the court appearances. There'll be like team meetings where basically everyone gets together, the judge, me, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, peer support specialists, to brief the case and to talk about how each person's doing and how the court can support the person, or the peer support specialist could support the person to help them succeed. And I do want to make a very, very important distinction or note here, because I don't want people to think that every case is going to go to community court. It's not going to be every case. It is the lower level offenses that we would consider public nuisance offenses, like some of the ordinances, like being drunk in public, disorderly conduct, criminal trespass, or if somebody's been told not to go back to Subway because they might be having a mental health episode or something, or intoxicated at Subway, they're told not to come back, but then they go back. That's a crime. So it's these offenses that people are committing more because of their status as someone who doesn't have a home, where they have nowhere else to go, or they literally have no food. So low-level theft cases under $100, and where a victim doesn't object. So it would not be a more serious offense that we would have, like an assault case or a theft in the second degree with a higher level, or if there was a named victim, things like that. So I just wanted to make that clear.
No, that's a good point. So in that process, then, who would guide a case to community court? Is this something that you would look at, the prosecutor would look at, the defense attorney would look at, or any one of that group could make the request? Well, I guess in your case, you don't have to make the request, you just do it. But how would that work?
It's any one member of the group.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. And a police officer could make the request. So if the police officers, they're the ones who are, talking to people face to face. And so a lot of it is publicizing it to the police department, and so that they know what's going on, and so they can say, hey, this is a good person for community court. And we'd also have the jail briefed on it with questions. They have to meet a certain criteria in order to be eligible for the community court, and that would be the public nuisance offense, and that they have are experiencing houselessness or are about to experience it due to poverty. So
How much is this grant for that we went for, and then what's the time frame in terms of how long it'll take to spin this up, and how long can we operate under the current grant?
it is, I proposed 5 years, a 5-year pilot project. We got approval for 3. And I expect if it's successful, hopefully the county will continue to work with us. I should have printed off the exact number.
We can ballpark it.
Yeah, ballpark it. It was over $1 million
Okay.
for over 3 years.
Okay.
And that funds basically the peer support specialist, a manager for the court, technology, things like that. So it was, we're really excited about it. I know the folks at the county are really excited about it. And I also work in Gladstone. I'm the Gladstone Municipal Court Judge.
You're busy.
I'm busy. But I'm hopeful that if we are successful and we get it going and we feel like it's working, that we can take it and go to the other municipal courts too, so we can really serve everyone in Clackamas County municipal courts with it. Oregon City certainly has, why I didn't propose it for Gladstone too, is that Oregon City, because the jail is located here, we have a higher number, I believe, of people who are experiencing houselessness and who are committing crimes because of it. I mean, they get out of jail, the jail's here. And so then they get out of jail and go into the community. And so it's just by nature of where we're located, we're the county seat. So
It stands to reason.
yeah, sort of like Portland, you know.
One thing that I think should probably also be important to note is, I mean, we talked about the grant. It's $1 million in that ballpark, but that money is going to save the city money in the long run through the effectiveness of the program. And we talked earlier about you're seeing like 85% of the cases are resolving successfully without recidivism. That's going to amount to quite a substantial savings for the city, I would imagine.
I hope so, and make the community safer.
Yeah.
Which I think is obviously in the community interest.
I mean, that's always the top
primary
priority,
goal.
but-
Yeah, is community safety, and also helping the individual person too.
Yeah, that's always the top goal, but there's always that budgetary question.
Yes, there's
that comes
always
up.
the budgetary question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not great with the numbers. I'll admit. I just like to,
I'm there with you.
yeah. We can leave that to Mr. Zook and Mr. Conkle.
Thank God we've got them.
I'm hoping that this gets going. We were going to start talking this month about the contracts. We have to do a lot of IGAs, as you can imagine. Lots of lawyers involved in setting up.
That makes it easy.
Yeah, really easy. So I'm hoping by the end of the year we will have it going.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm very excited to be working with the county and that they trust us to do it. And so, fingers crossed.
I think it's going to be a great program, and so we'll take that by the end of the year timeline. Let's meet back here in a year, and we can talk about hopefully some of the success stories.
That would be awesome.
Before we go, though, I want to ask one question.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I always like to ask people I know in the legal field. Does anybody on TV, any of the TV shows, get it anything remotely right in terms of what it's like in court? Does anybody actually get it
Okay, I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I learned evidence from Law and Order.
Really?
I swear, I really did. I was not, it's funny because I was a trial lawyer and now I'm a judge. But in law school, I had no intention of being a trial lawyer or ever going to trial. I wanted to be a employment lawyer like Ally McBeal I'm aging myself at this point.
I get the joke, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so I wasn't really focused on evidence, and but then I had to study for the bar, and that was a major topic. And so I loved this show on Law and Order with Sam Waterston, I think.
Yep.
And he would actually do really spot-on objections. You object, and then you have to state the basis. Relevance, calls for speculation, those kinds of things. And so I started really paying attention and learned a lot from it. Most of the other shows, absolutely not. My daughter and I are watching Suits right now.
Oh, my wife and I binged that this
Yes,
summer.
I mean, it's great. I love the show. But,
Oh, yeah.
It's not realistic at all whatsoever. It makes for great drama.
Oh, yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I've heard, and I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that a lot of professors use My Cousin Vinny as an example of something that's fairly accurate in the media. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that was that trial, I think was. People don't get that animated. If you got that animated, you might be held in contempt.
Well, to be fair, he was held in contempt several times.
Oh, yeah, I guess he was, too. It's been a while since I watched the movie. But, like, A Few Good Men, no, you wouldn't have
Way
a
out there.
major episode. But that is military court, not a normal criminal court. I think that most of the time things are very dull and boring. There aren't really a lot of fireworks. But
Well, thank you for indulging my completely pointless
course.
question, and also thank you for your time today. I appreciate you coming out to explain community court. I would also like to thank the Willamette Falls Media Center for allowing us the use of this space to create the podcast. It's been most helpful. It's definitely improved the quality of the audio and the video, so thank you to them. And thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning in to Inside City Hall. We'll be back with you on the next episode.